Motion sensors and LED high bay lights can save you a lot of money. But if they're programmed wrong, they can cause you a lot of frustration. I'm Doug Mullet. I've been working in commercial and industrial lighting for more than 10 years, and sensor programming comes up all the time on manufacturing and warehouse projects. In this video, I'll walk through the main programmable settings these sensors have and what each one does. There are two main types of motion sensors. They are PIR, which stands for passive infrared, and microwave. If you want to learn more about those two types and which to choose, there's a link to another video of mine in the description below. Besides these two common types, there are also two common ways to program them. Some sensors are programmed manually and have notches or dip switches on the sensor that you can adjust, or some of them are set up to program using a remote that you point at the sensor. In this video, I'm going to go over just the four main programmable settings of these motion sensors. These are detection range, hold time, standby dimming, and standby period. Let's talk about detection range first. Detection range is what's used to trip the sensor and turn the light on when someone is close by. You can pick different levels of sensitivity. At the lower range, you'll have to be a little closer to the sensor before it recognizes you there and turns on. And at the top sensitivity range, it can pick you up farther away. I have found that getting this setting just right to be very important, especially because how the detection range can be so different between microwave and PIR sensors and just different manufacturers of those sensors in general. Here's an example. A customer of mine, a plant manager named Rick, bought 4 fixtures from me as a trial and the sensors. He installed them at 30 feet. And even though the PIR sensor manufacturer said it would work up to 35 feet, even at a 100% sensitivity setting on the detection range, they sometimes needed to wave their arms kind of to get the lights to come on. They're just a little bit slow to react. That's not what you want. So no go on the PIR sensor for Rick. So then I sent Rick the microwave sensor, and because it's meant to work at higher heights, it's just more sensitive also. He found it to be best to set the detection range on the sensor to the lowest sensitivity setting. When he did that, the sensor was tripped from about 1 fixture away from the one that they were standing under, instead of having to be right kind of under the fixture and sometimes having to wave their arms as they come in the area. That's not good. So that, he thought, was a good detection range for his plant. I always suggest you test these sensors and detection range settings in your facility, in the area that you're putting them in, before you commit to a setting, so you can dial in the detection range sensitivity. The next setting is hold time. This setting controls how long the light stays on after someone has moved away from the light and outside of the detection range before it turns the fixture off. So the sensor is saying, there's no one here anymore, so I don't need to be on. How long do you want me to be on before I turn off? So there are different amounts of time, like 10 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute, etc., that you can set them at. The amount of time you set is a preference, but remember, the sooner that light turns off, the greater the energy savings will be. Now let's talk about standby dimming. With many of these sensors and dimmable LED high bay light fixtures, which most of them are, you don't need the abrupt on off. They give you the ability to kind of ratchet it down. It does this by giving you a standby dimming feature. What this does is that once that person has left the area and the fixture stayed on for the whole time amount of time, and that time has been met, it then, instead of instantly turning off, the high bay light can be dimmed down to a lower percentage or light output for a period of time before it turns off completely. As an example, maybe you set this dimming to like 10, 20, or 30%. Then you can adjust the standby dimming period to whatever you like, just like the whole time at 5, 10, or 30 seconds, or even 5 minutes. I think a lot of people like this feature, but if you don't, then you can basically override it if you set the standby dimming period to 0. On the opposite of bypassing the standby dimming is that you can do something that I have seen a a lot of people choose to do. You could set the dimming to maybe like 10 or 20%. And then there's a function in the standby dimming setting that is basically an infinity setting. On one of them, it's just 2 dashes. So that fixture stands by a lower percentage of light, but then never turns off. And the light fixture stays always ready to detect movement and bump back up to 100%. Lots of people like this in manufacturing plants and warehouses because they can look across their entire facility, even though there's no one, let's say, back in the corner of the plant, the lights are still on. And these high LED high bays are bright. So even at 10%, you can still see things pretty well. Think about it from a safety standpoint also. You could see if that forklift stopped running or someone had an accident and was lying unconscious. And I hope that doesn't happen, but there are times that it has, unfortunately. Or someone is taking a nap on the job. I hope that doesn't happen either, but I've heard it does. Those are the 4 basic settings. Detection range to set how close someone needs to be to trip the sensor. Hold time, how long the light stays on after someone left the area. Standby dimming so the fixture can dim down instead of completely turning off. And then standby period, kind of like hold time, but it's the last measure of time before the high bay light turns completely off. If you'd like my help with a project or a lighting product quote, please reach out. There are links to resources in the description below, and you can check out my homepage for more motion sensor videos, as well as videos on many other commercial lighting topics. If you haven't subscribed, please do. I enjoy making these videos, and I hope you find them helpful. Let me know by dropping a comment below.